Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the exalted one, the worthy one, the supremely enlightened one. Venerable members of the Mahasangha, friends in the Dhamma, at this moment, our Sutta discussion, we have selected a very special topic in Buddhism, Sammaditthi, which comes in Majjhima Nikaya. All the Buddhist doctrines can be summarized into one thing, which is wisdom. The main purpose of Buddhist teaching is to give in us wisdom or Sammaditthi. Sammaditthi has several synonyms such as Jnana, Vidya, Aloka, Dhammachakku, Ditti Sampanna. Like this, we can see several synonyms in Tripitaka for wisdom or Sammaditthi. The more we gain Sammaditthi, the more we know the world. The more we know about the world, the more we practice the Dhamma. The reason is that by understanding Sammaditthi, we understand how suffering arises and also how suffering ceases. When we see the Buddha's message, we can see many places Buddha has explained 4 qualities that we need to develop for our wisdom or knowledge. From the beginning to end, we can see these 4 qualities. They are said in several names, Sotapatyanga or Panya Buddhikara Dhamma. They are associating good friends, listening to Dhamma, wise consideration and practice. Sapurisa Sanseva, Saddhamma Savana, Yoniso Manasikara and Dhammanudhamma Patipatti. In all stages of our spirituality, these 4 things are very important. Our spiritual success completely depends on practicing these 4 things. When we discuss Sammaditthi, it means correct understanding, right view, correct vision. What is the vision that Buddha says here? Understanding the world and ourselves. When we see this topic, especially when we refer some discourses such as Mahacakkarisaka Sutta, the Supreme Buddha says, Sammaditthim paham bhikkhave dvayang vadami. Sammaditthi is divided into 2. They are Atti bhikkhave Sammaditthi, Sasava punya bhagya upadivepakka. There is a right view that is affected by tense and partaking of merit ripening in the acquisition. And also Buddha says, Atibhikkave Sammaditthi Ariya Anasava Lokuttara Magganga. Ariya means noble, Anasava taintless, Lokuttara supramundane, and Magganga a factor of the path, the Noble Eightfold Path. In the primary level, Sammaditthi means understanding the karmic law. This is the very first understanding. What is the meaning of karmic law? Whatever we do with intention, we have the same results. According to our mental state, if our mind is polluted, the results are negative, and also if our mind is pure, results are fruitful. This is the very first understanding that we receive throughout gaining Sammaditthi. The foundation of Sammaditthi is that understanding the karmic law that depends on the conventional truth. With this understanding, we practice the Dhamma, especially we practice three meritorious deeds: Dana, Sila and Bhavana. The highest gain that we receive throughout practicing these three meritorious is that gain in concentration. Especially in this level, practicing loving kindness meditation is highly appreciated in Buddhism. Not only loving kindness meditation, any samatha meditation technique that we can practice in this level. The main purpose of this level is to have a blissful life. We have no fear about our next life if we can succeed this first level. In one side, we practice virtue, especially Panchasila. On the other side, we concentrate our mind. As the result of practicing this pattern, we are able to overcome 5 hindrances. The highest goal of practicing doctrines in the mundane level with the understanding of the karmic law is that to become the concentration and also overcoming 5 hindrances. 5 hindrances means kamachanda, sensual pleasure, vyapada, ill will, and tinamitta, sloth and torpor, uddhacha kukkucha, restlessness and worry, vichikicha, doubt. These are the hindrances that disturb our peace of mind. If we can overcome these hindrances from our mind, actually we can make a Brahma realm in this human life. Physically we are in the human realm, but mentally we are in the Brahma realm as the result of practicing this pattern. The next level of Sammaditthi is that understanding the dependent origination or causality. Atti bhikkhave Sammaditthi, Arya, noble, Anasava or taintless, Lokuttara, supramundane, and Magganga, a factor of the path. Here we have to understand 3 things. They are the 4 noble truths, 5 aggregates, and the dependent origination. As the result of understanding these 3 things, we find the path that leads to getting rid of suffering. In short, Samatha Vidarsana or Sila Samadhi Panya, with details, the Noble Eightfold Path. With more details, the 10 steps which come in Avidya Sutta that we explained yesterday. This is the path. If we listen to the correct path for liberation explained by the Blessed One, we can see the connection of these 3 things. What they are? The 4 noble truths, the 5 aggregates, the dependent origination. These 3 things are interrelated. And also, when we understand these 3 things, we find the path. Practice. What is the practice? The Noble Eightfold Path. Ujuko nama somaggo, abhaya nama sadisa. This is the fearless path. This is the direct path. We have a confidence that we are in these 8 qualities in our day-to-day life. In this discourse, Sammaditthi Sutta, explained by Dhammasenadipati Arahant Sariputta, he explained the way how we gain Sammaditthi or right understanding. When we search the Buddha's message, the Blessed One has explained Sammaditthi in various ways. When Buddha met Panchavaggiya Bhikkhu, Buddha explained this message in short. How did he do it? Yang kinchi samudaya dhammang sabbantan nirodha dhammang. That is the very short explanation. When Buddha met Bahya Daruchiriya, Buddha explained this message as Evang hite bahya sikkhitabang ditte dittamattam bhavisati. When Buddha meets Anathapindika, Buddha explained in short this message that chakkung anicchang, rupang anicchang, like that. When Reverend Assaji met Reverend Sariputta, he explained this message in short. Ye dhamma hetu prabhava te sanghetun tathagatawaha. When Buddha met some people, he explained this message. Iti imasmin satidang hoti, imasmin asatidanna hoti, like that. We can see this message in various ways according to the audience. When Buddha explained his message, he had a very special psychic energy that, parachita vijnana jnana, and also very special jnana that indriya paropariyatta jnana. With these understandings, the Buddha explained his message directly according to the audience. But when other monks explained this message, they couldn't have to do it. Therefore, they explain various ways for gaining Sammaditthi. When we search the discourse of Kinsukopama, there also we can see several ways how we gain Sammaditthi. In this discourse, the Sammaditthi Sutta, Reverend Sariputta explained this message to other monks, how to gain Sammaditthi in various ways. When monks were together, they asked Reverend Sariputta, "Dear friend, please explain us how we gain Sammaditthi." Reverend Sariputta explained, if a person can understand the wholesome and the root of wholesome, the unwholesome and the root of unwholesome, he can gain Sammaditthi and he can attain the Dhamma. In short, Reverend Sariputta says one of the ways that we can gain Sammaditthi is that understanding unwholesome and the root of unwholesome and the wholesome and the root of wholesome. In Pali, akusala, mula, akusala, and kusala, kusala mula. What are the akusala mula? The roots of unwholesome, greed, anger, and delusion. Those are the roots of the unwholesome. Then Reverend Sariputta says, what are the unwholesome? Unwholesome can be divided into 10. As you know, panatipata, adinadana, like that. There are 10 things that belong to akusala, dasa akusala, the 10 unwholesome. And also wholesome is that the 10 kusala, or abstaining from those akusalas. And what are the roots of wholesome? The roots of wholesome is that alobha, adosa, amoha. Non-greed, non-anger, non-ignorance. If a person can understand clearly this wholesome and the root of wholesome, unwholesome and the roots of unwholesome, he can gain the Sammaditthi. But very special thing, Here we should understand the causality. How these wholesome and unwholesome arise. They arise because of the roots of wholesome and unwholesome. How that panatipata arises. What is the reason of killing a being? What is the nearest reason of killing a being? What is the root? The root of killing being is that the nearest reason is that dosa or anger. The next one, stealing. What is the nearest reason of stealing? The nearest reason of stealing is that greed or covetousness. What are the nearest reason of sexual misconduct? Lobha or greed. Like that, there are nearest reason for wholesome and unwholesome. If a person can understand this relationship, that person is able to gain Sammaditthi and he can enter the path. If a person can clearly understand this path, he finds the path. What is the path? The Noble Eightfold Path. If a person is unable to find the path, it means he really didn't understand the path, the kusala and akusala. That is the reason. When Reverend Sariputta explained these things, monks who listening to this message, they delighted and also they enjoyed with this message. And also they asked again, Reverend Sariputta, let us know that if you any other theory that we can gain Sammaditthi, please explain it. Then Reverend Sariputta explained another way how we gain the Sammaditthi. If a person can understand ahara or nutrition and also the origin of ahara or food, the cessation of nutrition or food, the path that leads to getting rid of nutrition, he also can attain Sammaditthi. There are 4 foods that Buddha has explained. They are Kabalinkara, like nutrition, and Passahara, contact, Vijnanahara, consciousness, and Manosanchetana, mental formations. When we discuss these things, sometimes you may be confused that how we overcome ahara or nutrition. If we overcome nutrition, how we get food and how we live, sometimes you may be confused. Actually, here it is very important to understand this ahara means the attachment to the ahara or nutrition or food. Ordinary people always depend on these 4 things. That is why they go around the sansaric circle. If we want to overcome the sansaric circle, we have to overcome the attachment to these 4 food explained by the Buddha. The very first one is the nutrition that we take for our physical body. Even Arahantas, they take food, but they have no attachment. They see the rising and ceasing of this food, and also contact. Even Arahantas, they have contact, passa, but they don't take it as a food. They don't depend on contact. They are not in the Sparsa Samudaya, Passa Samudaya. We, ordinary people, we are the end of the extreme of arising of contact. When we see something, when we hear something, we are in the extreme of contact. Even though that ceases, still we are thinking it is happening. We are the extreme of samudayanta, the contact of arising. But Arahantas, they live in the Samudayanta, contemplating on the cessation of contact. They don't take contact as a food, but we, ordinary people who are in the samsaric circle, we take passive contact in the corner, in the extreme of samudaya or arising. That is why we are in the samsaric circle, we have rebirth. And also vijnana. Ordinary people take vijnana, they live with vijnana as a food. Chakku vijnana, sota vijnana, gahana vijnana, like that. The very first experience is not have food, but after it ceases, we take these things as food. Even though it ceases, still we are in the extreme of consciousness. We have taken the eye consciousness, ear consciousness, like that. We have taken it as a food. The reason is that we use this consciousness as a part of the Paticca Sankhara Paccaya Vijnana. That Vijnana belongs to us since we are in the samsaric circle. It means we have taken it as a food. And also Mano Sanchetanahara, Sankhara, Avidya Paccaya Sankhara. We collect mental formations as me, as my, as mine. We depend on Sankhara. We collect Punyavi Sankhara, Apunyavi Sankhara, and Ananjavi Sankhara. It means we are in the samsaric circle. Reverend Sariputta explains that if a person can understand these for food, and also if he is able to overcome the attachment to these four things, and also he knows the cessation of these four food, and also he can practice the path, he can attain the right understanding, Sammaditthi. Monks who listening to this message were very happy. They delighted. They enjoyed listening to this message explained by the Sariputta there. Then they again asked Reverend Sariputta, could you please explain another way to gain Sammaditthi? Then Reverend Sariputta explains again another way how we gain the Sammaditthi. The Sariputta there explains, if a person can understand Four Noble Truths, the unsatisfactoriness, the cessation of unsatisfactoriness, the origin of unsatisfactoriness, and the path that leads to getting rid of unsatisfactoriness, he also can gain Sammaditthi. What is the Dukkha Satya? Dukkha Satya, as you know, Jatipi Dukkha, Jarapi Dukkha, like that. It is very easy to understand. But when we go to the deeper level, Dukkha Satya means very first experience that we receive through our senses. When we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, five aggregates at the moment arise. They are neither pleasant nor unpleasant. They are neither wholesome nor unwholesome. They are just result of our previous karma. If we don't know the reality of these five aggregates, we have attachment to the five aggregates, then we collect new karma. The very important thing, the very first experience we should not do overcome. Buddha has explained, there is an eye which is on fire. As Most Venerable Bhanteji explained in the morning session, according to Aditta Pariyaya Sutta, there Buddha says, Chakkung Adittam. The eye is on fire. Forms are on fire. We should understand very clearly, if the eye is on fire, should we close our eyes? I think all of you have read about Indriya Bhavana Sutta. There was an ascetic person who is Parasarya. He advised his disciples to close their eyes, close their ears. That is the way how they practice discipline. Buddha says, if it is correct, if there are persons who are deaf and blind, they should be the person who have discipline. They may be enlightened persons, but Buddha never recommended it. They advise, the other traditions advise to reduce the result of dukkha satya. Buddhism never says us to reduce or overcome dukkha satya. Dukkha satyam parinyayam. The very first experience should be realized, should be understood. We can see the forms, we can hear sounds. That is just a result. But we develop our karma with the roots of unwholesome, lobha, dosa, moha, especially with ignorance. There we create new karma. That is the reason of suffering. After we see something, when we recognize something, the first experience has ceased, but we are still in the extreme of arising. Therefore, we think that still that form and sound is happening. That is the new karma. New karma is not the noble truth of suffering. That is the origin of suffering, samudaya satya. That samudaya satya, the noble truth of the origin of suffering, should be overcome. That is the fire. That I is on fire. Now when we understand something, that form is on fire. Because we recognize this form with our ignorance. What is the ignorance? We think that still there are some forms outside. And also when we see something, we think that still my eye, which causes to see this form, is still happening. That eye is on fire. That eye should be overcome, which consists with ignorance. That is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. The noble truth of suffering should be understood. That time Buddha says, you should recognize, or chakkung parinyayam. That chakku belongs to the dukkha satya, or the noble truth of suffering. In Aditta Pariyana Sutta, Buddha says, Chakkum bhikkhave adittang, rupam bhikkhave adittang, chakku viññānaṁ adittang, chakkum bhikkhave pahatabban, like that. That eye is not the first eye, that eye the second eye, that we created with our ignorance, that should be overcome. That should be reduced. For that, if we want to overcome this eye, the origin of suffering, we should go to the next level, Nirodha Satya, the cessation of suffering. How do we practice it? How do we release the I? We have to reflect on it as impermanent. I arises and ceases at the moment. Then we release from the I that we take with ignorance. And also the fourth truth is that the path that leads to getting rid of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path is that, in short, Sila Samadhi Panya. If a person can understand these Four Noble Truths, he is able to attain Sammaditthi. He can arrive at the true Dhamma. This is the way how we gain Sammaditthi. Reverend Sariputta explains here the way how we can gain Sammaditthi through understanding the Four Noble Truths. That is also one of the ways. Again, with happy minds, Monks asked Reverend Sariputta, please explain another way that we can gain Sammaditthi. Then Reverend Sariputta explains, if a person can understand Jara Marana, aging and death, Jara Marana, and the cause of aging and death, the cessation of aging and death, the path that leads to getting rid of aging and death, he also can understand Sammaditthi and he can gain the path and he can arrive at the true path Dhamma. Jara Marana. Jara means decay, Marana means death. These things can be explained in various ways. One of them is very easy. When we are going to old age, that is decay or Jara. When we physically die, that is Marana. Actually, that can be understood by anyone. But Buddha has explained another explanation that every moment our eye forms, they go to Jara Marana. Arising and ceasing. Arising is Jati, ceasing is Marana. Every moment our entire world arise and cease, they becomes decay too. That also should be realized by us. However, if a person can understand what is the reason of Jara Marana, decay and death, the nearest reason of Jara Marana is that birth. Because of birth, we face Jara Marana, decay and death. And with the cessation of birth, we are able to overcome decay and death. What is the path that we can achieve this path? Practicing Noble Eightfold Path. Reverend Sariputta explained this way how to gain Sammaditthi. Monks were very happy. They asked again, Bhante Sariputta, please explain another way how we gain Sammaditthi. Then Reverend Sariputta explains, if a person can understand jati or birth, and also if he can understand the origin of birth and the cessation of birth and the path that leads to getting rid of birth, he also can understand Sammaditthi and he can arrive at the true Dhamma. He can go forward on the path. Understanding birth also one of the techniques that we can gain Sammaditthi. But it has a deep meaning. It is not very easy. Understanding every part depends on understanding the dependent origination. Except understanding dependent origination or Patisampada, we are unable to understand these steps correctly. However, again monks ask, please explain another way to attain Sammaditthi. Then Reverend Sariputta explains several ways. Understanding bhava or becoming, understanding upadana or clinging, understanding craving or tanha, understanding feeling or vedana, understanding contact or passa, understanding sixfold base or salayatana, understanding mentality and materiality, namarupa, understanding consciousness or vijnana, understanding mental formations, sankhara, understanding avidya or ignorance, understanding asava or cankers helps us to understand or becoming the Sammaditthi or right understanding. There are 16 ways explained in this discourse how we gain Sammaditthi or right understanding. Actually, in short, if we say that understanding the parts of the Patisampada, avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnanam, vijnana paccaya nama rupam. There are 12 steps we can see there. The other things are ahara, kusala kusala, satya and asava. There are 16 steps that we can gain Sammaditthi. The foundation of all these steps that understanding the causality, cause and effect. When we are ignorant, then we take the world as permanent. With ignorance, if we see something, we immediately create new karma sankhara. Punyabhi sankhara, apunyabhi sankhara, anindabhi sankhara. Punyabhi sankhara means meritorious mental formations. Apunyabhi sankhara, demeritorious mental formations. And anindabhi sankhara, infertable mental formations. When we are ignorant, as soon as we something, suddenly our mind is fixed outside, it means we end with Jara Marana. There are no stops in the middle, no excuse. We end with Jara Marana, decay and death. We are with suffering, unsatisfactoriness. Then we collect some karmas. According to Dutiya Kamma Sutta, Atti Bhikkave Kammang Kannan Kanna Vipakam. There are some actions which are black that result black results. Atti Bhikkave Kammang Sukkam Sukha Vipakam. There are actions which are white that brings white results. Atti Bhikkave Kammang Kanna Sukkam Kanna Sukha Vipakam. There are some actions which are black and white that brings us black and white results. These three things belong to the sansaric circle. Among them, after Buddha appeared in this world, he explained another special karma. That is the unique in Buddhism. Nobody knew it before Buddha appeared in this world. What is that? Atti bhikkave kammang akanna sukkang akanna sukha vipakang kammakaya sammattati. There are some actions neither black nor white that result, neither black nor white result. It means if a person can practice some path with the understanding of the dependent origination, especially practicing insight meditation is the way that reduces our karma or sankhara. That helps us to overcome the sansaric circle, which is very appreciated in Buddhism. For that, we have to listen to the real message with the association of good friends. Associating spiritual friendship decides that we go on the path of liberation. That is very important. With this understanding, the very special thing everywhere, as the path Reverend Sariputta explains, the Noble Eightfold Path. Sammaditthi, understanding these steps is that right understanding. We don't need to understand all things. If a person can understand only one thing, he is able to understand other things too. Understanding one step leads to understand other things. The reason is that we understand these things with the foundation of the dependent origination causality. When we have this Sammaditthi, we don't stop in Sammaditthi. With the understanding of the Sammaditthi, our confidence in the Buddha's enlightenment, Saddhati Tathagatasya Bodhin, we are confident in Buddha's enlightenment. We believe it. We trust in his understanding. Then we are ready to go forward. We go to next level, Samma Sankappa. Avyapada Sankappa, Avihimsa Sankappa, Nekkhamma Sankappa. Renunciation, loving kindness and compassion. These are the thoughts generated in our mind when we have Sammaditthi. We are always ready to overcome our desire little by little. Not only that, we practice loving kindness thoughts and compassion. It belongs to Samma Sankappa, right intention. Not only that, we become the virtue or moral conduct. We have Samma Vacha, right speech. The huge difference that happens in our life is that the discipline in our speech. We can check by ourselves whether we have entered the path. This is the visible result. What is that? We have discipline in our speech. When we have this vision, we always think about these qualities. Message, Samma Sankappa, Sammaditthi. If these things are in our mind, we are unable to speak gossips and useless words. Automatically we can see the discipline in our speech. That is the main thing that we can see within us by ourselves. Before our discipline in our actions, we can see the discipline in our speech. Our speech is very heavy. It is very valuable. We give a value to our speech because of this understanding. Samma Vacha. And also Samma Kammanta. We are abstaining from stealing, killing, and sexual misconduct. Now we have found the path. Now we correct our misbehaviors. We know very well this path is fearless. This is the real path for happiness. These 8 steps are the steps of happiness. As Bhante explained, the 8 mindful steps of happiness, the Noble Eightfold Path. We give the priority to practice this path. We have right action and also right livelihood, Sammajiva. We do everything righteously. We earn everything righteously, honestly, because now we are on the path. We give the priority to our inner peace. The most important thing in our life is that mind. We don't disturb our mind. And also we don't give any chance to anyone to disturb our peace of mind. The most important thing is that our inner peace, we do everything giving the priority to our mind and its inner peace. Samma Vayama, right effort. We always try to overcome negativities and practice good deeds. That is right effort, right mindfulness. We do everything mindfully and also we practice fourfold mindfulnesses as the result of this Sammaditthi or right understanding. And also right concentration as the result of practicing mindfulness little by little, practicing meditation techniques. We concentrate our mind in the present moment using some techniques. There are 40 meditation techniques in Buddhism for concentration. As our interest in, we can use those techniques for our inner peace. Dasa Kasina, Dasa Anusati, Satara Brahma Viharana. Those are the meditation techniques that we can practice to gain concentration. And also, when mind gains concentration, we see the reality as it is, what we heard before. When mind gains concentration, like when we look at a well, if water is very clear, we can see the bottom of the well very clearly. Like that, when our mind gains concentration, we see that I is impermanent, forms are impermanent, I consciousness is impermanent, I contact is impermanent, like that. In another way, we can reflect on 5 aggregates are impermanent. Forms are impermanent, feelings are impermanent, sanya or perception is impermanent, consciousness is impermanent, mental formations are impermanent. We reflect on impermanence. As the result of practicing this insight meditation, we release from outside material world. Not only that, we contemplate on that my mind also impermanent. It arises and ceases at the moment. Yatta namancha rupancha asesang upurujyati. Wherever mentality and corporeality cease, then suffering ceases. We see that everything we create at the moment with the conditions, and also as the result of cessation of conditions, the present experience or present 5 aggregates also cease at the moment. As much as we practice this reality, we become equanimity, upekha, sankhara upekha jnana. And also we release from suffering, samma vimukti and samma jnana. Right liberation and right knowledge. We have this knowledge again and again. The more we have this knowledge, the more we liberate from suffering. We make a refuge within us that nobody can disturb. Here, Sammaditthi Sutta, Reverend Sariputta explains 16 ways how we gain Sammaditthi, right understanding, the way how to arrive at the true Dhamma, and also the way how to become the stream entry. As the result of this path, we are inspired and we give the priority to our spiritual life. We do everything in our day-to-day life, giving the priority to our spiritual life. Then we see this path as a fearless path. Our inner peace, inner happiness day by day gradually increases. We have no fear, no doubt, no struggle, because always we have the protection. The real protection is that Dhamma protection. He who practices the Noble Eightfold Path is protected by the Dhamma. Dhammo have rakati Dhammachari. When we inspired with this Dhamma, we give this Dhamma to the world too, because now we have compassion. We have a compassionate heart. If we practice this path day by day, we grow our inner peace, happiness. We understand the samsaric journey. A lot of people around us, they were our close relatives and friends in our previous lives. Mostly our parents. With this understanding, we give this Dhamma to the world. Sabbadhanam Dhammadhanam jinati. The gift of Dhamma excels all other gifts. Sharing this Dhamma with other people, we always go forward little by little by practicing this path. The very special thing, Sammaditthi. For Sammaditthi, Buddha says very close reasons. There are 2 reasons which help us to gain Sammaditthi. They are in Pali, Parato Gosha and Yoniso Manasikara. Listening to Dhamma, which consists with the 4 Noble Truths and the dependent origination and wise consideration according to what we listening to. These 2 things are the close reasons to the Sammaditthi. What they are? The very first one is Parato Gosha, or listening to Dhamma, and also Yoniso Manasikara, wise consideration, wise reflection. These 2 things help us to develop our Sammaditthi. But we should understand very clearly, if we listening to the Buddha's true message that helps us to overcome suffering, for liberation, emancipation, three things are interrelated: Four Noble Truths, five aggregates, and the dependent origination. As soon as we understand this relationship, we find the path, the Noble Eightfold Path. As the result of this path, our confidence gradually increases. When we have confidence in the Buddha's message, we have virya or effort, virindriya. Then we practice mindfulness, sati, becomes concentration, samadhi. Samahito bhikkhave bhikkhu yatha bhutam pajanati. He who gains concentration reflects on impermanence as it is. That is panya. These are the five spiritual faculties of Pancha Indriya Dhamma: Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya. If we have correct understanding, Sammaditthi, we find the path, Noble Eightfold Path. When we practice the Noble Eightfold Path, these five spiritual faculties gradually increase. When those five spiritual faculties increase, the seven enlightenment factors gradually increase. Satta Bojjhanga. Mindfulness, keen investigation, virya effort, saddha virya, sate sambojjhanga, dhamma vijaya sambojjhanga, virya sambojjhanga, piti sambojjhanga, passadi sambojjhanga, tranquility, samadhi sambojjhanga, concentration, and upekha sambojjhanga, equanimity. These are the enlightenment factors that develop when we practice the Noble Eightfold Path. Finally, as the result of practicing this path, we are able to attain Vijja Vimukti. Vijja means knowledge or understanding. Vimukti means liberation. As we mentioned before, as the result of practicing Eightfold Path in the mundane level with the karmic knowledge, we can go to the concentration, and also we are able to overcome five hindrances. As the result of this path, we can overcome ignorance or delusion, and finally we are able to attain Vijja Vimukti. It says in Buddhism, Samma Jnana, Samma Vimukti. Okay, this is a very long discourse which is Sammaditthi. I explained everything in short. You can refer this discourse with this handout and you can develop your understanding. If you have any question, you can ask. In this discourse, we explain 16 steps of Sammaditthi. Reverend Sariputta explained, if a person can understand unwholesome and the roots of unwholesome, wholesome and the roots of wholesome, it helps us to gain Sammaditthi. Again, Reverend Sariputta says, understanding ahara or nutrition for food, or understanding satya or for noble truths, understanding aging and death, understanding birth or jati, understanding bhava or being, understanding clinging or upadana, understanding craving or tanha, understanding feeling or vedana, understanding contact or passa, understanding sixfold base salayatana, understanding mentality and materiality, namarupa, understanding consciousness or vijnana, understanding mental formations or sankhara, understanding ignorance. The reason of ignorance is that asava. When we refer the information about the dependent origination, there are various theories we can see about Patisampada. These steps can be interrelated. Avidya pacya sankhara, sankhara pacya avidya. Avidya pacya asava, asava pacya avidya. Sankhara pacya vijnanam, vijnana pacya sankharam. Vijnana pacya namarupam, namarupa pacya vijnanam. Everything has a relationship. If we can overcome one thing with ignorance, we can overcome other things too. It means we can overcome suffering, we can overcome ignorance. Ignorance is the main root of suffering. That is why Buddha says, ignorance is the worst defilement, unwholesome root, danda viraga mahasavajya. It is very difficult to overcome and results are more painful, more dangerous. Avidya is like a very heavy darkness. What is the ignorance? The very simple meaning is that when we think something, we always think something with some forms. When we remember something, automatically a form comes to our mind. Not only it comes to our mind, but we think still that form is happening in this world. It is alive in this world. That is the sign that we are in ignorance. What is the way how to overcome this ignorance? As soon as we remember something, when a form comes to our mind, if we can understand, now I understand this form through my mind consciousness, then we can overcome suffering. For that, we should understand the foundation of field. What is the field? Mindfulness. Be in mindfulness. Whenever we are in mindfulness, we are near the Buddha, we have a safety. Whenever we are away from mindfulness, we are near the Mara. Mara or external world can control us. We depend on outside. We are like beggars. We are like prisoners who are in the prison. That is why Nibbana is said as emancipation, freedom, liberation, enlightenment. For that, I wish you all the best. May the Triple Gem bless you. Dukkam pantāca niddukkhaṃ Bhayam pantāca nidbhayāṃ Sokam pantāca nissokāṃ Hontu sabbe pipānino Dukin pelena sat Dukin midettua Bien pelena sat Bien eti vettua Sovinte vena sat Somnas vettua Nitin me hema sat Suepat vettua